So record. Yay. So it's so nice to be here with you, Steve. Let me introduce you. So Steve wrote an amazing book called The Great Pain Deception. And this was one of the books that it was one of the first books that I read on my healing journey that really changed my life forever. So I'm so grateful to you. And yeah, do you want to add to that, introduce yourself?
Yes, I don't think about my symptoms anymore because they're gone. But when I talk to people like you know, and that you've been helped so much by this work as well, I started to go over all the symptoms I had, and it's a long, long list of symptoms, and maybe I can just tell my story up here quickly,
Love that, yeah.
Um, I had health problems my whole life, which people who have health problems now, if they look back honestly, they'll see they did, since they were little kids. That's where it begins. It doesn't begin suddenly in adulthood. Although I've seen a handful of those people that have had serious trauma, and trauma will bring on health problems. Sorry, but I'm talking generally speaking, we've had them our whole lives. And so I had rheumatic fever at 7 years old where my heart valve was damaged, and they kept saying he might not live. And I'll never forget that, of course, being 7 years old. And then my chronic back pain started in my early teens, and there were skin problems, and my left leg ended up paralyzed in the late 1990s. I had to drag my foot for 9 months because the reflexes were gone, motor function was gone, sensation was gone. And skin problems, of course, sleep problems, they all go hand in hand because these are not different problems. They're all one problem, okay? And so my pain got to be the dominating force in my life in the 90s. And I was just weeks away from surgery. Well, I should say first surgical consult. I should say, I don't know when the surgery would have been, but I was a couple of weeks away from a surgical consult with a very renowned surgeon in Cleveland, Ohio. But fortunately for me, before that happened, I found the work of Dr. John Sarno, who saved my life and millions of us, okay? And he proved clinically through decades of astronomical success that back pain does not come from the structure of your back, no matter what the industry tries to brainwash you with. You can't throw your back out. It's not coming from herniated discs or stenosis or spondylolisthesis or spondylolysis or whatever word they want to give it, whatever label they want to give it, right? That those things are there, but they're not causative factors. The brain is simply attacking those things. It's attacking the arthritis. It's attacking the stenosis. It's attacking these normal abnormalities, he called them, in what he called TMS, tension myoneural syndrome, which evolved towards the end of his life to the mind-body syndrome. It's evolving as we evolve, it evolves, right? And I didn't believe him at first. I thought he was a quack. Crazy, because I got my MRIs and it showed a pinched nerve right at the same level of paralysis. And so the doctors, they're taking those images and they're putting those together in what's called a spurious correlation. It's not the cause, okay? It's just incidental. Sometimes the herniation is on the right, the pain's on the left, but it doesn't matter. They still attribute it to the spine. And so I rejected this message that we're going to talk about today, which most of the world does. About 80% or maybe more will not accept what we're going to say today, but it works virtually every time. And so people have a decision to make in health. Am I going to accept it? Because it works. And so I healed completely. And then, like a domino effect, all of my other health problems disappeared because it's all one problem. Okay? Now, what is that problem? Well, depends on your perspective. It shifts as you grow spiritually. It begins to shift, and so we can talk about that if you like as well. But
Yeah.
I've been symptom free for 22 years. I run, I lift, I golf, I have fun. I don't think about my body anymore. I think about the moment. the moment, this beautiful moment of life that we're given here that we call the present moment, which is the answer to all of our health problems. Okay. So that's as fast as I can say.
Yeah,
50
that's
years of
yeah, no, that's so amazing. And so like what was the thing, like what made you accept that you could heal or there might be another way? So for me, I was like really obsessed with the mechanical. We chatted about this the other day. Just the mechanical. I was like a mini scientist. I could tell you everything about my digestion and my digestive enzymes. I could probably name you every enzyme in the body, you know, just this hyper fixation on, and then I get clients who come to me who are like, know everything about their spine. And like you said, it is, it's it's almost hard to get pulled away from that world and into something more simpler that does work. So what for you like gave you that opportunity, that opening?
your suffering. It's the greatest teacher at times. You know, it doesn't have to be, but I mean, even like Eckhart Tolle, you know, it was suffering that had him awaken that one night in 1977. Suffering, you know, I rejected this work of this brilliant Dr. John Sarno, but so I got worse. I got worse because I was looking like you and almost everybody in the world for a mechanical answer. It's a mechanical body. It is not. It's not. It's a field of consciousness is what it really is, being held together by mind. And whatever's trapped in that mind, well, can manifest. And so we have to clear these possibilities from our mind. But I got worse. I can't remember exactly when I found his work, but I think I rejected it immediately. Because you know, you think that they're telling you that you're making it all up in your head, you know, which is not true. They're making that up, what they're saying. No one's saying that, you know. It's just that it begins in the mind. Okay, it begins in the mind, but it's not, you know, made up. The people are suffering. I mean, the people that come to work with me, I know they're suffering because I know what it's like, you know, and I saw that in your face when I met you too, you know. But I got so bad that I decided to go back. I couldn't walk anymore. I was crawling around on the floor and I stopped eating. I was down about over 50 pounds and I've always been a thin person. So that's a lot of weight, you know, that's a lot of weight. And so I thought, you know what, maybe I'll go take a look at this crazy doctor again, you know, and then it hits you, the truth of it, like a punch in the gut, because you have to be open. You have to be open to be happy. You have to be open to heal. You have to be open for God. You have to be open for love. You know, open these heart chakras back up again. So there was suffering, forced it. You know, if I would have been stubborn enough, if my ego would have been stubborn enough, I would have died. You know, Anita Morjani told me, you know, I had to die to realize what was going on. You know, it just holds on to these old notions of what life is really about. And it's not about those things, the things that we're focused on as well. And so you were one of the pleasurable people to work with because you listened. I remember the thing back in my mind. I can't remember what year it was, but you were absorbing it. I remember that. You didn't say much. You just kept absorbing it. And here you are today, smiling. You weren't smiling when I first met you. I felt bad. I feel bad for everybody, of course, but you can smile now. And the people that come to you for help, they're going to be blessed people.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, like for me, I actually didn't reject it when I first, my first introduction to TMS, tension myoneural syndrome, mind-body syndrome, the mind-body connection, was through the Curable app. And I heard this pain science lesson that just said, when all pain is created in the brain, and if you break your arm, the messages go to your brain. And then it also mentioned phantom leg syndrome, where people experienced pain in a leg that wasn't there. And I literally, from that moment, I dropped everything. I dropped everything else I was doing. And you know, you're like spinning all these plates when you're trying to heal all these different things. You think everything is separate. The skin is separate to the gut, is separate to the psychiatry, everything. See, and then I literally dropped all the plates and just focused on this one thing. And I do anything. Like the suffering was so intense, I would do anything. So I was like looking up everyone. That's how I found you. I was like, get him on the phone. I need to talk to him ASAP. So what, so you have this opening, and I know it so well when you're just deep in the suffering and you do anything, and the opening to something else, another possibility. And so do you want to explain maybe like what that is? Like, what is TMS?
Sure. Yes, for anybody who doesn't know, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who read all about it watching this as well, but for somebody who doesn't know about it, it was the brainchild, of course, of Dr. John Sarno. He was at the Rusk Institute at the New York University Medical Center. He's passed on now in 2017. He left us. But his life's work changed the world. It changed the medical industry forever, but it also changed the consciousness of our planet. I work with people in pretty much every country in the world, and they'll hold his books up in their languages, and smiles on their faces. Millions and millions of books were sold. He changed the consciousness of our planet by proving clinically, which is important. Theory's theory, but he proved clinically at one of the largest cities in the world and one of the top hospitals in the world that his patients didn't have physical body problems with fibromyalgia and knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain, skin problems. The list is almost infinite. But they had a personality problem. And of course that's developed in childhood with the relationship to the parents, and how you see the world, how you perceive the world. And so they're locked in this, a lot of it is the fault of the medical industry by telling you your body's failing. Your body's failing. Look at this arthritis here. Look at this. This is shorter than that. This is longer than that. This is tighter than that. It has nothing to do with that, of course. And we know that because they heal virtually every single time. If you can get away from the mechanical type thinking. So he proves, through astronomical success that, all of his patients are healing. Virtually was the word he used, virtually every one of them. Virtually means almost everyone. There's always somebody who won't accept it, of course, and so the people who did accept it, virtually every one of those get healed. And what's going on is that when the person becomes overwhelmed with emotions and demands made on themselves, that the unconscious anger inside that person is rising till they can't take it anymore. But they don't know it's rising because that's what the word unconscious means. You don't know it. You're not aware of it, okay? Then suddenly they're blindsided with a symptom. Bam. Now they got cancer. Now they got MS. Like in my case, I lost my vision here. I was blind from halfway up. It was just a black bar across there, which is called scotoma. Scotoma, now I know what it is. Of course, I thought I was losing my eyesight. My health problems got worse. I helped a lady recently get her hearing back too, So pretty much everything is coming from mind. There are a couple things we're not sure about. If you listen to Bruce Lipton and people like that, who are the leaders in this new movement in the world as far as the evolution of our planet, right? He's saying there's no such thing as a disease at all. And I tend to agree with him, but there's a couple of things we don't know about, like Huntington's and Tay-Sachs. It's mutating from generation to generation, but I still believe it has something to do with consciousness, but we just don't understand it. The rest of it's pretty much from mind, And of course, we're not talking about injuries or accidents, of course. I mean, if you fall off the roof of your house, your body's going to have to heal, but it will heal rapidly. If the body is not healing, if you have a chronic condition, you've got TMS. Okay, you don't know it because your doctor doesn't know about it. But what he proved is that your brain is diverting your attention and awareness to the body and away from all these unwanted emotions that are surfacing. They're beginning to surface because you can't contain them. You can't hold them down anymore. You've repressed them so long, and they're about to burst into consciousness. So in order to keep the lie going every day, which is what Freud called a superego and Jung called a persona, the brain will increase shoulder pain or something like that. And so you're constantly putting your attention on it. That's what your brain wants. It's distracting you to the physical away from the emotional. Now, the problem begins, because you go to the doctor. Oh, you got a tear in your rotator cuff. Well, everybody does. Okay, everybody does. And then well, let's operate on it. Let's stab it. Let's medicate it. And then it becomes to get worse because now they've legitimized it somehow in your mind. But I had a person a few years ago. The doctor told him he had a 90% tear in his rotator cuff. But in the meantime, he found the great pain deception. He said, I started thinking, is this possibly TMS? So he said, he contacted me and I told him, go have another opinion. Well, he went to another doctor and MRI showed 10% tear in it. So they're reading these things all over the place, the chemical levels and all that stuff, and they're just rising and falling because of stress and tension, And so I haven't seen a physical body problem in my 22 years I've been doing this work, although it might be sometime, I don't know. I've only seen what I've seen, of course. But the TMS doctors that I work with tell me they don't see it as a physical body problem either. So it's a strategy by your brain, TMS, to divert your awareness and attention to the physical and away from the emotional body.
Nice. That was so good. Thank you. I was just enwrapped in that. And so the brain is correct me if I'm wrong with this, but the brain is it's protecting you from these painful emotions, these painful realities,
Good. Nice. Yes.
And so it's doing it's the brain, I'm just going to say, is naturally benevolent. It's not wants to do you a good job and wants to protect you from these painful truths or realizations or emotions. So it creates a diversion, and then it's wants to help you that way. And then, but you see, it's not, like you said, it's not just in your head. Mm-hmm. It is a biological, physiological reaction. So there is a spasm. For me, with the IBS and not being able to digest my food, I was in a state of constant stress. So my digestion truly wasn't working. And I really did have these physiological, biological dis-ease and tension and contraction of the muscles and organs and body. But the brain was it was diverting me from it was actually stopping me from growing.
Yeah. Right, or telling you need to grow, one or the other.
Exactly. Actually, that's great, because I talked about this with someone else. It's an invitation for growth.
Yes. Every problem is not just physical health problems, but every problem in life is an invitation. That's really right from the Buddha's mouth, Bless every problem, he said. Well, that's hard to do. It's hard to bless when you've lost a loved one or something like that, but it's part of the growth because everything's in transit, Life is constantly changing. But within these people who suffer from TMS, they're not changing. Like anger is one of the main emotions underneath the physical symptoms of everybody in the world, right? Anger means you're not changing. I'm holding on to the past at some point. And so and my work's a little bit different, as you know, because we've talked about this. A lot of people doing the TMS work are working on the emotional body. Let's get these emotions out. Let's fix these emotions. And I'm saying, let's stop generating these emotions. So you don't need to fix them. I'm going closer to the source of it, right? Which is in your mind. And so it's a mind problem. That it's like you just said, it's the mind and the body aren't separated. The stuff from the IBS is mind stuff. It's manifesting physically because there's no difference between the two. That's why we take that hyphen out between mind and body when we write the books now. Mm-hmm. The people that really know what they're doing, they take that hyphen out of there. Okay, that came from Candace Pert, one of Dr. Sarno's friends who wrote Molecules of Emotion, one of the greatest books you'll ever read. She told Dr. Sarno, let's take that hyphen out because it's one word, like Einstein's space-time, one word, because they're the same thing, right? And so we're evolving as a species here. Of course, the institutions fight this. They hated Dr. Sarno. They hated him. You know, People used to throw things at me. Well, I threw Dr. Sarno's book, so I understand how they feel. Ignorance is darkness, is what it is, right? I don't understand, so I'm going to react with anger. That's what it means, right? But anyway, you were one of the more open ones to it. But I find that women usually are. They're more in tune with their bodies. They can immediately see, oh, that fight I had with my mother. Yeah, my neck. Oh, yeah. Guys will go, nah, I hurt this playing football in 1947. It's a bad neck. It's not. The body heals itself rapidly. As Dr. Sarno said, there's no such thing as chronic pain from an old injury. It does not exist. It's the brain latching on to that opportunity to start TMSing. And so what we're talking about here between you and I, is it's a revolution in understanding and healing, but even more so in spiritual growth.
For sure. And that is entirely my experience as well. And yeah, I was just loving everything you were sharing there because, it was reminding me that I see so much in how my pain got me what I needed. And so I didn't know how to recognize my own needs. And I didn't know how to ask, my self-worth was so low. I didn't know how to ask to have my needs met. And I see how being ill got my certain needs met in different ways. And so, and I can see how that I can just see it in other people. And it doesn't mean, I hope I'm explaining this well, but
I think I understand that.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yes. I just had this conversation a couple of weeks ago with a client. Yes.
Like sometimes someone just say, oh, they put their back out and they get a week off work or something. And it can be really hard to hear this, and it takes a lot to recognize it in yourself. And like, I do recognize that I'm super open and brave, but I love seeing these things about myself. Something that I often see is new dads putting their back out.
Yes.
And I only work with women, so I don't know a lot about like the gendered beliefs and things around emotions for men, right? But I can only imagine that becoming a father is a lot of emotions and pressure. And I've just seen over the years, someone become a father and then they put their back out. And so then people come to support them. And I'm like, wow, the brain is so clever like that, right? Because I'm like, I had all these systems and people and like ways that I was being supported through my illness. And then so recovery was actually really scary, like so scary, because it was like a threat to my survival to let go of the ways that I had been getting love and support from the world around me, and to really truly change like that. And I came up against, you just keep coming up against yourself every time you're doing this journey. So
that's beautiful. You said that so well.
Thanks.
I don't know if I could have said it that well, but you speak from your heart. I'm a writer. I think about things and write them down, but you speak from your heart. That was beautifully said. I just had this conversation with a client who she had extreme TMJ, they call it, right? And the doctor made her buy this, they call them apparatuses, we call them mouthpieces, but for $6,000. I said, get rid of that stupid thing. There's nothing wrong with your job. They're trying to make it a mechanical thing again, right? Well, she healed pretty rapidly, but her mother has MS. And she said, I can see how it brings the love of the people to her. But it stings the ego to hear that. Like I think that's what you're trying to say. It stings the ego to hear that. You're not doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Sarno said, they're not malingerers. That's the word he used. They're not. Although I have run into a couple of people who say, I bet that TMS thing is right, but I'm golfing and fishing and getting high every day and not working. I'm not gonna. They like, so there's always that, I suppose, at some end. But that's the rare cases. Most people would rather get healthy and go back to work, right? So yes, this is without their knowing about it, okay? And so we're not accusing anybody of anything, okay? But it's like when a baby cries, it knows immediately, it brings people to it to meet its needs. Well, it doesn't know that. It's not purposely saying, hey, I'm going to bring these people over. It just does it. It's instinctual. And so these things are often instinctual. We don't know it. And so anybody who has an open mind, but even more important, an open heart, they can heal from anything. I've seen it. I've seen people heal from stage 4 cancer, deafness, vision problems. Of course, pain is one of the most common things. But we also realize these aren't different things. Cancer is maybe just a more intense form of like back pain or migraines or things like that, right? It can manifest anyway, organically, neurologically. It's bizarre. I've seen some of the most bizarre symptoms that you couldn't even imagine. And I don't even tell them to people because the people will get it. They will get, because it will be held within the field of awareness. Once we clear that field, you've cleared it, which is Dr. Sarno's main message. Just go back to living again. There's nothing wrong with you physically or mentally. Now, sometimes the people need a little more tender care of counseling, right? Not everybody can just say, oh, that's it. It's all done. And some people do that, and those are the ones the other ones hate, But sometimes you need tender touch. You've been traumatized by life and by your parents. And so a good professional listening ear helps. But as Dr. Sarno said, you can go to the best psychotherapist in the world, and it's not going to help at all until they know about TMS.
Right. So there is this disconnect. And I was talking to a TMS psychotherapist during the week, and she's amazing. But there is this missing link. Like, yes, you can do all the talk therapy. So I had done everything, literally everything. I did psychotherapy and psychoanalysis and like EFT, like all these different kinds of emotional, psychological healing modalities and journaling and everything. And on some level, it was keeping me stuck in the mind. Like, I think you said this either, it was more mind. It was more descriptions. It was describing more and more everything that was wrong. And so what ended up happening for me, and I'm not disrespecting or that, that healing modality at all, it has so much benefit for the world.
Right.
However, for me, it made me more it just made almost like, eventually it made my problems almost more vivid. I just knew them in more detail, and it's like it generated more emotion where there was already emotion, like generated more.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point to make. I thought about that when you mentioned this app. An app can't cure anybody. It's like a hub. It's pointing you to the people that can help, right? Things like programs and journaling and things like that, they can be of great benefit. I've seen that, because what it's doing is opening this third eye here to a higher consciousness. But those things are also the problem sometimes that I've seen. Like in the way you just described it, in my opinion, that if you are completely identified with your mind, and which means unconscious as a human being, you're just stuck in this life, just going through the motions, like Tolle said, you allow your mind to drag you like a wild river all over the place. If you're stuck in that mode, those things can be lifesavers, those things you just mentioned. But I tend to be the last person that they come to after they tried everything. And so I see that those things are the things preventing them from healing. So once I get them to stop those things, they tend to heal pretty quickly. So they can save your life, but they can be the problem. So just be aware of that is all. So I hope somebody doesn't listen to this and go, well, I'm not going to do those things then. No, they might be of benefit. But go back to the great prophets like Ramana Maharshi, he said, stop analyzing your mind. Stop it. That's the problem. You're not your mind. Why are you stuck analyzing it? And that's the work that I do, is don't do those things, And I'm having great success here too. But some people will write to me, it really helped me. I was so good, because we want to mitigate your suffering. The whole idea that you and I are doing this work is to help ease the suffering. Okay, but until you get to understand the deepest cause, it's not going to end. You're just going to keep pushing the suffering around. We want to end it, right? Mitigating it's good, but ending it's better. Ending it's better. And so I'm glad you brought that point up. It's one of the big contentions in the work that I do.
Yeah. And the other thing about that, when I first found TMS and the mind-body connection, I got really obsessed with the idea that I had all these traumas and that I somehow needed to keep revisiting them and rewriting them. Right. And so I spent my first maybe year of sitting in the corner of this room actually, and remembering every trauma I ever had from childhood, adulthood, ex-partners, and writing as if I was in the present moment and rewriting it. What I discovered was that there was endless amounts of memories. The brain kept creating more. And actually, while I was still in this state of stress in my or misery, pain, suffering, my body's in a state of fight or flight. When I was in that condition, for want of a better word, that the way I remembered things was different anyway, and I wasn't really processing anything because I was not present, right? I was not relaxed. I guess I just had that process. And also then I falling into that story of oh, I'm so traumatized.
And we fall into self-victimization mode. Look at my life. I didn't get a fair shot. And then you're stuck in low vibrational frequency. You're in trouble. That's why I'm not a big fan of analyzing the mind, but once again, it can help some people, So in my opinion, it depends on where you're at on this consciousness scale here, If you're awakening pretty much and you're getting closer to being, to happiness and to God, or, these things are burdens. They're burdens. But if you're just starting out, give it a try. But be careful. Things like journaling and apps and things like that, they aren't solutions. They're tools. They're tools. If used poorly, it can damage you, at some point. But used properly, it can be of the greatest benefit. And so, part of healing, as you know, is being more open to everything. It isn't anger. What we know, anger is behind almost all this health problems we have. Isn't that being not open? Isn't it? And so once you begin to open up, you start saying, okay, I can see both sides of life now, right? I can start to see my bad sides, my good sides. I'm not all bad, right? There's a lot of good in me, And so you start to have better relationships with people. I think we talked about this the other day. The relationships are much better. And that's one of the things that really makes me happy when people write to me that I have worked with or have read the book. I feel better than ever, Steve, but my relationships are even better. Well, they're the same thing, the body problems and the relationship problems, right? Most importantly, the relationship with the self. Most importantly, because if that's bad, all the other relationships are going to be terrible.
Right. And I have goosebumps hearing you share that, because this was so profound for me. And because when I was really, really sick and I was suicidal and I couldn't eat and I was really thin and I was in my parents' spare room, and it was just the darkest times. And if you were a magician and you came to me and you said, or a genie in a bottle, and you said, I grant you a wish, my wish would have just been the symptoms. Every thought was consumed. The symptoms. They were the highlight of the story. They were the front and center. They were everything, right? And what I got was so much better. What I got from doing the TMS healing was so much better. If you had have just wiped away all my symptoms and left my life the way it was, I was miserable. I thought it was just the symptoms. I thought it was just the symptoms, and that's why I was miserable. But actually, I was just miserable in everything.
Reverse
Yeah.
that order. Yeah, a lot of people will write to me and say, Steve-O, please help me get my old life back. I said, you don't want the old life back. It's the one that got you into this mess. How about a new, better life, a better one? And then they start to think, oh yeah, maybe that would be better, you know. But, you know, sometimes they think, oh, the old life was going well. It really wasn't, because it was leading you to where you are today, in the bottom of the pit, right? And so it's, you know, once you hit the bottom, the only place to go is up at some point. So some people do have to get worse. I hate to say that, before they'll open up to this. But yeah, you know, I made sure that in my first book, The Great Pain Deception, the very first line in the book is life is relationship. I made sure that was it before the book even started. Inside the first page, life is relationship, on purpose, because what else is there? What else is there? You know, relationship with God, relationship with self, same thing. Of course, relationship with everybody around you, same thing too. They aren't different things either. Then God, everything's oneness. That's what we mean by love, this oneness, you know. There's no more conflicts as you begin to grow. And so it's always been a spiritual journey for me. It's always been that, you know. Some people don't believe it is, but they tend to come back with more health problems later. I notice, you know, it is not. And then like 2 years later, now my knee hurts. But that doesn't mean you won't ever have pain again. You know, Thich Nhat Hanh used to say, you know, to be in touch with pain is to be in touch with life. You know, we are in a duality here. We have a body. We're going to have some discomfort, right? It's part of the struggle. So, you know, I can't shoot a gun through my foot or a bullet through my foot and say, you know, I healed from TMS. I can't have pain anymore. Of course it'll hurt, you know. So we're going to have some discomfort, highs and lows in certain days, you know, but you're moving and evolving with life now, and flowing and growing, and you're not rigid. When I studied the ancient Chinese healers, that was one of the main themes. People with pain and disease, they would say, have a rigidity within them, a refusal to grow, you know, which Yogananda, of course, said, you know, God is harmony. It's a beautiful flow of harmony. It's ever evolving, ever expanding, ever growing. What if you don't want to grow and expand? Well, you're stuck. The chakras get stuck. The body's locked into certain things, you know. So TMS is also just a tool in a way of growth. You know, it's not an end solution either. You know, what is the end solution? Love. That's the end game. You know, I keep it behind me all the time. I don't know if you can see it, the camera angle. But unfortunately, these people who suffer multitudes of health problems, they don't love themselves. And it wasn't their fault. They were taught that. Like I was talking to you about Ram Dass. I just saw him recently say, we don't start even when we come into this world. We start in the negative. Everybody's fighting, thinking they're inferior and I'm not worthy and all these things because they were taught that. And they're fighting to get back to zero. So we're starting from beneath bottom, you know, which is a good point. That was a good point on his part. But, you know, anybody can heal. I'm not saying everybody will heal, because sometimes the soul is ready to move on. I'm saying anybody can heal, because I've seen it from weird things. Very, very weird things. It's bizarre at some point. The brain can do it. And I don't know if we mentioned it, but they're often very symbolic. Very like here, the pain here. You know, first thing we noted was like 95% of this is women get, not men. And there's two reasons for that. They don't feel like they can speak up most of the time. And they know observers are watching them, looking at their faces. They have to have makeup on. They have to look good all the time. Men really don't give too much care about having to look good all the time. Women believe that they have to be, right? I've had friends say, I don't even go to my mailbox without makeup on. Oh, I'm afraid to go to someone might catch me, you know. So they know there's observers looking at them. They get this. And of course, back pain, I think you said when a father has a new child, that's always been listed as financial worries. And I'm sure that's what mine was too, you know. So it makes sense. You have a new kid, you know, and you want to take care of your family. Oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this, right? Knees are like support, you know, and things like that. Shoulders, I'm bearing the weight of the world on my shoulders, you know. I did a consultation yesterday and the guy's already feeling better from years of shoulder pain. He sent me an audio message today, you know. It can happen rapidly, but it doesn't mean if it doesn't that you're not one of those that will heal. You still will heal. You know, it doesn't mean it will have to happen rapidly. Nobody knows when it's going to happen, because when you stop looking, that it happens. You know, it's like when you want something in your life, it's immediately put out of your reach so that you will have to go become the person that's worthy of that. Okay, so stop looking at it. Start having more joy in your heart, you know. You did not smile once when I met you. You haven't stopped.
I know, and I remember, I even said this to someone recently, but I remember you saying this to me. You said, just go be happy. Just go, like, go fall in love, go be happy, go fall in love.
But people tell me that sounds flippant, though. You know, you make it sound so easy, Steve. It's too flippant. I don't mean it to be that way, of course.
I know.
But it is the answer, you know.
And it was exactly, and I really thought about it in the past year or so. And I did. I'm such a diligent, open student, right? I just literally, I got off the call to you, and I did. I literally, I went out, but I didn't know how to be happy.
Yeah. I didn't either, you know. And of course, grateful, which I didn't know how to either. I had everything in the world, but I wasn't grateful, because that's that parental programming in the mind. You've got to be better. You got to be better. You got to be better. So you never really get to enjoy what you've got in this moment. Or as Eckhart Tolle said, almost nobody in our world can enjoy this present moment because they're too busy using it to get to the next moment, which is called dissatisfaction, which the Buddha said was the heart of all of our suffering, you know, dissatisfaction. It was called dukkha in his language, you know, dissatisfied. So when you start to become happy with everything, and you start to heal rapidly, very rapidly. But, you know, unfortunately, we're programmed, and when we're born as children, you know, what was the Chinese proverb I stated? Every child is a blank piece of paper where everybody leaves a mark, you know, and so the child comes in angelic, you know, the face of God. On every baby is the face of God. But then the marks start happening, right? And they think, oh my God, I'm not worthy of this and of that, and I've got to fight for this and that. And so, you know, if you grew up in a loving environment, you know, which a couple of my friends, beautiful, loving environment, they didn't understand why people have so many health problems. You know, what do you mean? Why do you worry? They would say, why do you worry? And they couldn't understand it. You know, the stuff rolls off their back, you know, because they always felt loved, and they were never in fight, flight, you know. They felt blessed all the time. So that's why the heart of my work is always perception. Perception, you know, false perceptions are causing the health problems about yourself and the world around you, you know. So shift perceptions, you know. And of course, people say, oh, you make that sound too easy too, you know, just go get happy. Well, it can be a battle. It can be a fight. You know, I just saw the Dalai Lama on a documentary about the Buddha, and he said, you know, you can't give up all desire, because then you lose your desire to, you know, awaken, to know God. And you have to fight sometimes. He even said in the documentary, Buddha had to fight. He had to fight to get there. So, you know, fight for your happiness, you know, fight to free yourself from your mind, fight for this stuff. And in my opinion, that was the statement Dr. Sarno made that helped me the most. When he said in Healing Back Pain, one must confront TMS, fight it, or your symptoms will continue. You know, because I didn't know what to do. Should I just lay here all the day and heal? Should I lay down for 6 years? Should I quit everything and just lay down? Or should I go out there? Because it hurts when I go out there, right? Well, he gave me the direction, right? Get up. Don't lay down feeling a victim. You know, yes, these things have happened to you. Yes, you've been traumatized. You know, many people molested that I've worked with, many of them. A lot of men too. You know, there's always that crazy uncle or crazy boyfriend or somebody, be careful who you leave your kids with. I would like to say that to the world, because I'm the only one that they've told. They tell me, I've never told this to anybody, but after I read your book, a lot of people have been hurt deeply. And of course, some of them have blocked it, and then the symptoms rise. And of course, but once again, that's not real now. It's in the present moment. It's a memory. And if you want to hold on to that victimhood, you can take yourself to an early grave. You can take yourself to an early grave, and that's why Anita Morjani wanted to help me as well, So this is a group effort. I'm glad you're in this group fighting for women in Ireland there and around the world too. You're also helping people around the world. This is not my work. I'm a messenger boy, like a paper boy. I'm delivering a message here. If people want to hear it, I'm willing to talk. And that's why I'm here today, because I want to help you like you've helped me. People say, how can I thank you, for your book? I said, well, go heal. That's the greatest thanks. It really makes you feel good inside, and you know how it feels already. You've already helped people to heal. So it's a great feeling, but anybody who wants to, they can try to contact us, but I make it a point never to get involved with free will. Never. I've never told, I started doing this work in the year 2000. I've never told someone, you got to hire me. Come hire me. You got to join my group. You got to join. Free will is everything in healing and in knowing what love and in God, right? It's everything. And so I never interfere with that. If they come my way, I'll be glad to try to help them, right? But I can't help them if they're not ready. It's never going to happen. I could tell someone, there's enough in the Great Pain Deception there. Is it over my shoulder? There's enough in there to help anybody heal, but lots of emails will say, write another one. If that's not doing it, you're missing the points inside the book. I thought Dr. Sarno's healing back pain was enough. Of course, I was the type T person. I wanted more. Give me more, give me more, give me more, right? But all I really needed was one book at some point. Actually, you don't even need a book. A guy contacted me and said, thank you. You took my, however many years of pain away. And I said, oh, thanks for letting me know. It's always fun to hear. I said, which one of my books helped you? And he said, you wrote a book? He didn't even know I wrote a book. He was watching the Wall of Victory, the TMS Healing Wall of Victory on YouTube, and he healed. So you never know how it's going to happen at some point.
That's amazing. Yeah. It was a longer journey for me. I was the doer. I needed more books. I needed more tools and more things. And that's the journey is just different for different people.
That's what you needed,
Yeah, exactly. So, and I love what you said also about the fighting, putting up a fight, because the subconscious really, really wants to protect you, I feel, and it really puts up a good fight. To prevent change so I do experience, every time I go through a big growth, I experience my subconscious freaking out and maybe symptoms or fear or what anxiety or whatever, but That's
true.
It is that fight that you say, like,
let me rephrase it the way David Hawkins said it. The ego will try to justify the beliefs held by your unconscious mind. In other words, you don't believe in TMS, right? I don't believe it deep inside. I don't believe it. So the ego will say, oh, it's because of this and this. It will try to justify it instead of just accepting it. The people who do best are the ones who absorb it. They sit back and they open up and they listen. They just absorb it and they don't have to do anything else. It's just like light being shed into the unconscious. Like the rabbi who was online talking about the fragmented disc in his back. It broke off. The disc fragmented off, which sounds really dangerous. And 4 doctors told him he would be paralyzed quickly if he didn't get that taken care of. Well, he went to Dr. Sarno and to one lecture and the pain disappeared forever. Okay, so be very careful. We do want people to get examined because things like ulcers, they are TMS events. They are stress and tension related events. But if you don't get that bleeding stopped, you can die. We don't want anybody to get hurt here. Go get examined. You might need medical care because it might get to a dangerous point, this TMS. So we're not dismissing the industry. Just, once they tell you it's from your, this and that, then you can just dismiss it. As Dr. Sarno told me, tell them to take it with a grain of salt, Steve. I guess it's an old saying, it tastes better, I guess, with a grain of salt. Yes, anybody can heal. I don't know whether they will. Everybody that I know has gotten better, different speeds. Some people immediately while you're Zooming with them. The next day, sometimes the next month, 6 months down the road, they're all progressing at their own pace because their soul's on its own journey. But they need to know this too. Healing is not a journey. I have to emphasize that. Healing's not a journey. If you see it that way, you're going to always be on the journey. Do you want to be healed or healing? And I'll tell you, there's a few people that I've met, they'd rather be healing their whole lives. That victimization mode that you mentioned earlier.
I really get that. Like our soul is on a journey.
Yes, not the healing though, the soul is on a journey.
Yeah, I really get that. Wow, okay. It's just always such a pleasure to connect with you and to chat with you. I feel like we could just keep chatting for hours and hours.
Likewise. Yeah, we could. It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. Life is better. TMS is an opening, an invitation to people to come have a better life, right? That's why I said Dr. Sarno shifted the consciousness of the planet at some point, And so, yeah, it's fun, but if we overburden people with information, we're not doing them much good again, right? And so different people need different things. What we're doing here is allowing, just putting out the message for people to hear if they're interested. So a lot of people won't be, but those people who are ready, maybe they'll find a happier life.
Right. And a great place to start is with the Great Pain Deception. I can recommend Steve's book. It's so accessible, I have to say. It's really just like so easy to read. It's
easy for me. It's accessible for me. I just reach
back. It's right there. Yeah. And it covers so many. I love the bit at the back, the kind of like index. I actually made a lot of connections to random symptoms through that index at the back of your book. So there's so much just helpful information in there. And like you said, some people just read the book and they heal, or maybe
they irritate the other people.
Yeah, I hate those people.
They're called book cures and book cures. Yeah. They're not very common, so don't get upset if it doesn't at first. But you just reminded me, I should update the back of that, because since I published that, I have over 1,000 new symptoms that I can put in that. But then that book's going to be like that, and it's going to scare people, One lady told me, I bought your book on Amazon. I set it on my coffee table, and I walked around it for months looking at it like a tiger prowling at a prey. It's because the answers are in there, and she knows it. She's not ready. Like I threw Dr. Sarno's book against the wall because it was true. It was true. If it was, just silliness, I would have laughed, I react in anger. Jung called it reactivity. When you react like that, it's true. It scorches part of your ego because it's true, right? And so you get to talking about the psychology of it, which we could talk about for months, psychology of it, but most of it's irrelevant at some point. So anyway, if they're interested, they can find you or me or whatever. And good luck to everybody. We want the whole world to heal.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting, and it's not only a fight, it's also really fun when you have these breakthroughs and when you feel some relief for the first time in your whole life.
For the first time ever. You start to cry.
My story, my big breakthrough was because I'd been on these pure diets and on and off sugar and gluten and all these things for so long and so many years. When I went to the local shop and I bought some Mars ice creams and a can of Guinness just to eat these like treats, these normal things, and nothing happens after years of being allergic to these things. So it's like, it's really fun. It is a fight, and it is whatever it is to each person, it's different for everyone, but it's just like, for me, it's just fun. My life has never been so fun and so light. And like you said, the relationships, I've never had so much like peace and love in all my relationships, and no one else had to change. I thought they all had to change, but and that's just fun and love and joy, which is really
that's a good point too. You know, they all have to change. I remember reading, I didn't mention Carl Rogers but once maybe in the first book, but he was brilliant as well. He said, when I watch the sunset, I don't think to myself, needs a little more orange over there, needs a little more yellow over there. I enjoy it for its beauty, just like you should enjoy anybody for the oddities that they have, you know, for who they are. Just enjoy, don't try to change them. They're not going to really at some point, you know, change yourself, you know. Well, or actually find yourself is a better way of saying it, because what you are is that sunset, that beauty, you know. But we, you know, that's why I don't want to get into psychology too much about the superego and the persona and all that stuff, because that's all part of the problem as well, you know. And so anybody that has a great desire to heal and wants to fight to heal, they will, you know, so they can. And the information's out there, because everybody who's healing is now writing a book, you know. There's going to be millions of them eventually at some point, you know, because it's so fun. The first thing human being wants to do is share it. I want to share it. You know, I've got something that can change your life. Here it is. And of course, most people look at it and throw it away. I remember David Hanscom, that spine surgeon who was suicidal with back pain himself. He said he was part of one of the most aggressive spine units in the world in Seattle, Washington. They operated on backs at a rate 9 times higher than the average hospital. So they were very aggressive, but he had back pain of his own. And well, he found Dr. Sarno's work and he healed. And so now he's telling people, don't do surgery. Don't do surgery. He wrote, you know, some books on it. Well, guess what his hospital said? Stop talking to these people, operate. Because heart surgery is the #1 surgery in America and back surgery is #2. Well, he's no longer at that hospital, I understand. But I remember him talking in an interview. He said, we offer these options to people. You can heal your back by understanding this information. And he said, they just want the surgery. So this is what we're doing here today. It's just a very small drop in the ocean, but we're doing it. We're dropping more water to the ocean. Dr. Sarno never believed that the general public would accept it. There's too much money. First of all, if people accepted TMS as their problems, the economies of the countries would start collapsing. You know how many people depend on healthcare industry and the insurance industry? They would collapse. He called it economic chaos.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of this, but that's so true. Billions, like it's billions are in the
probably trillions of dollars, you know. But you know, and like in Dr. Sarno's documentary, All the Rage, it's called. I remember the dermatologist that was in it said, it's a real practice killer. He said, a real practice killer. You just talk to the person and they get better. You know, there's no money in it, you know. There's no money in it.
Actually, this is what Dr. Sarno, he called it knowledge therapy.
Yes, so good point.
He said to people, they're like, give me the pill, what do I need? And he's like, well, come to my lecture.
Yeah, come to my lecture.
They're like, what the hell?
It sounds bizarre that understanding something, you know, through knowledge can heal you. It's so bizarre, especially once you've got those memes planted in your head, the images of the test results and the arthritis and all this stuff, you know, but it's not coming from there. It's attacking those things, but it's not coming from there. Like when one of the first times I talked to Dr. Sarno, he was talking to me about strep throat. He said, you know, people think that the infection causes a strep throat, but it does not. The infection comes in later. The strep comes from stress and tension, you know, and your immune system's dropping, and then it gets very vulnerable. And so when it's weak and vulnerable, this infection comes in. So they think, well, we'll give him this medication and it'll take the strep throat away. But he said it will often take the infection away, but strep throat remained. So it's not once again, it's not a causative factor like an ulcer. That's not the cause. It's just an incidental, like the herniations and the rotator cuff tears, and it's just on and on. This is an evolution in understanding. It's an evolution in understanding, and welcome aboard.
Thank you, Steve. You're such a joy to chat to and to hang out with, and you're such a wealth of just wisdom and experience. And I am just absorb it. That's what I do. I just love to absorb it and to be in your presence. So, thank you just so much for.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I don't do many of these anymore talks, but because of you, I'm here. Okay. But if I was to describe you in one word when we worked together, it was absorbing. Mm-hmm. I saw it. Your head was nodding like this, and you didn't reject anything. You didn't say much at all. You absorbed it. And those are the people who do the best, actually. The ones who keep asking questions back and back and back, they do well too, but they have a little more struggles, But so, yeah, it was a pleasure. I thought I heard you say can of Guinness earlier.
Yeah. Have you ever had Guinness?
Well, we don't call it a can of Guinness, but I would like to have one someday with you.
Yes, you have to have it in Ireland. Guinness outside
right.
of Ireland is subpar. So I only drink Guinness when I'm in Ireland, and I would love to. Steve's ancestors are from Donegal in Ireland, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world, probably. And so, yeah, we'll have to have a pint of Guinness.
Yes, and together. I've been told the same thing, that outside of Ireland, it's not the same. You have to be in Ireland, which I want to visit someday. So yes, it was a pleasure meeting you again. Good luck with your business as well.
Yes.
And I'm sure I'll be in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure. We'll keep in touch. Okay, lots of love, Steve.